Hey everyone, welcome to the Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson. I have a beautiful guest today, Timi Gleason, who is a beautiful executive, but also global coach who helps people with kind of creating a strategic plan and roadmap for their life. She has been since 1999 helping corporate leaders and entrepreneurs define their leadership style and their brand. But it's kind of evolved into so much more, right, Timi? So we're going to talk
Yes.
about that.
Yep.
Um, so without further ado, welcome, Timi, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Wendy. I appreciate it. Thank you. Glad to be here. Glad to have this
Yeah,
conversation.
it's so exciting. I know you help people uncover kind of their unique identity, like um, their kind of life destiny, or you're able to kind of
Mhm.
through assessments and analytics, but then also a numerology kind of
Right.
create this what you would call a soul work map,
Yes,
right? And
exactly.
so maybe you can speak to me and the audience more about what that looks like and how you developed and evolved into this ability to create this
Well, you and I
soul.
were joking before we started that I basically have been a closet numerologist probably since the middle 1980s, and using it with family and friends. But my day job is to work with corporate people in corporations that have teams all over the world. And this pandemic really changed everything for me and for everyone else, because I know how to access the truth about things through the numerology. And I just found
Right.
myself offering it more and more to my corporate clients, when they would get stuck. But also, I answer a lot of questions on Quora.com for
Mhm,
people. And there was a lot of pain on Quora during the pandemic.
mhm.
So basically, I've, come out as a person who uses business assessments and combines them with practical numerology. And when I say practical, I mean your birth date and your birth name. And I have a way, if you're married, to make that work also, to combine that. But the idea being that I can nail why you're here, what you need to focus on a daily basis, what your path is to your destiny, and I can talk to you about potentially what your destiny looks like, and then tell you how you're going to do it and what people see, so that you can have confidence that you're already, you're enough, and you can just be this brand that you are, and people will respond to you a certain way.
That's a huge offering because I find that many people have a hard time believing in
They
themselves
do.
and who they are. They are
And
so
depending on your
often.
culture, it's really can be really bad. If you've been taught to be humble, overly humble, or to not step up and step into yourself, it can be really hard to accept it.
Well,
However, it resonates, right? People know when you tell them these things, they
yeah,
know.
yeah, the truth has a way of hitting you a certain way on a deep soul level.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the process is about overcoming fear and having the courage to go against tradition
Mhm.
and also offering them the knowing maybe that you were born to do this. You
Right.
came
That
in
you're
with,
here. You're
you're
here as a
here.
transition person. You're like Moses, moving them from one point to the next, right?
Hmm.
You're here to help define the future. And it's not against tradition, and it's not against the way you were raised. It's not against anything. It's for the future.
Yeah. And I think helping people to understand that is a very powerful, powerful gift.
Thank you. It's pretty rewarding. It's pretty fun, really.
Right. And each journey is so unique too.
Hmm. I had a I still really active on Quora, and I had a question last night about how hard, it's been so hard, and I just want to give up. And do I have to give up? And I have this great career, but I never get past minimum wage. What what can you tell me, because I'm at the end of my rope? And the more I read it, oh, I think I responded and then I got a response back, which you don't always get on Quora. And I was like, I think I know what's happening, but I don't know this person's birthday. So I eventually wrote back a little more and I said, if you want to tell me your birthday, I do practical numerology and I could help you maybe. Just I could at least look at it. And I got the birthday back and it was absolutely what I thought. They numerologically were going through a difficult year. It was right there and they had just finished it. And numerologically, their birthday said that they were a spiritual light messenger. And when you have that number in your birthday that says you're a spiritual light messenger and you don't know it, it's hard because you know something's wrong. You know there's something you're supposed to do. You haven't a clue why you feel the way you do.
Mhm.
And and you need help. You just need someone to reinforce it. So I was able to do that. And
Oh,
it was wonderful. It was really, really rewarding.
I mean, just that small, simple act, right, is such a huge
Mhm.
offering.
And it's just
And
data. I just said, here's the data, and here's
right,
what this data means. And
right.
what you feel is normal and it's over. You're not going to suffer like you did last year. And it's over. And now here's where you're headed.
There's some comfort that you can
Yeah, there
offer.
is.
But I
Mhm,
also feel like you're very intuitive too, to me,
mhm.
because I feel like you already know.
Yeah.
You already know,
Well,
honey.
you do it long enough, you start to see, patterns and behaviors, and you're like, I think this person's going through a certain kind of year. And if I could just double check that.
Well, it's nice to
Yeah.
have some sort of concrete
Yeah, a little system,
something.
right? A little way,
Yeah,
like a acid test,
right,
right? Hmm.
right. I know that for a lot of your clients, you have used many different kinds of assessments to bring clarity to them and give them some sort of perception of how they operate and how the world sees them.
Yeah.
And from that point, maybe kind of create stepping stones to help them navigate forward.
Yes. So
Basically.
think about that. I work with leaders at the top level, like directors and vice presidents. And so what they often lack is vocabulary. And what we can get from the assessments is vocabulary for how they are, for how others are. And also, the assessments usually have categories, like maybe 4 types or 3 things or 6 things. So it helps them develop their critical thinking skills and to be able to sort through a problem, to go, oh, I'm extroverted. I have to blah, blah, blah all the time. My key person is introverted and they have more of an internal conversation going on. And I need to respect that. I can't be going, what do you mean? What do you say? What are you going to say? Respond to me now. You have to change your behavior. And a lot of times I get these gigs because there is a communication problem or
Right,
an aggressiveness or
right,
assertiveness that's inappropriate.
right. It is difficult when you have a lack of sensitivity because I think
Yeah.
people are very self-focused. So they're, expressing in their own way. They're not really in
Yeah.
tune
Well, it
or dialed
works, right?
into
They
the
got all the way
audience.
to these high jobs and they're getting paid to
Probably
be like
not
that.
in
But
the easiest manner, but it does. It got them there, but
yeah,
maybe it could have been done more
it doesn't work
effectively.
anymore. Right. Right.
Times are changing.
Yeah.
Times are
Well,
really changing.
leadership is about inspiring and having vision. It's not management anymore. Management is a different thing. So you're teaching people the difference between, okay, you got to manage their hours, you got to manage their pay, but you need to inspire them because they're at these high levels also. And you need to inspire them to use their ingenuity and to use their experience to make a difference in the workplace. And
And that's not taught.
honestly, for as evolved as it's not taught and it's not easy to pick up unless somebody sort of tells you. You don't always know what's wrong when you're having trouble.
Right. So it's
So
perfect
yeah.
that you're available to offer that. And so I know the pandemic was a huge transitional time, and a lot of people were in fear. A lot of people lost people they loved. A lot of transition happened in the workplace and how we do business. And um,
Mhm.
people lost a sense of themselves, or they had to really confront themselves and the choices they were making because all of a sudden everyone was home focusing and being forced to interact with their
Forced.
families and look
Yeah,
at
we don't do well as
themselves.
Americans being forced to do anything, I don't
Right.
think.
Right. So what did you notice during that time? Because I know it was a very pivotal time for humanity and what people went through. What were you noticing? And did you find a big shift in your work?
Yeah, I did see the big shift. It forced me out of the closet, basically, in order to really to be, I mean, I knew what to do and I had to be willing to, like, again, like you talk about courageous enough to just say, well, I could help you with this if you want to talk about numerology or you want to talk about assessments. Well, the first thing I noticed is that it affected people differently. So you had your young people that had just graduated from high school that were going to enter college or not, but wanted to party. So they couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't do anything. And
Right.
you had moms, a lot of single moms out there who had younger children that needed childcare because they couldn't take them to childcare. Moms needed to keep the jobs if they could keep their job. You know, a lot of people lost jobs. And
Hmm.
I found myself with several young people to say, you know, they're like, this isn't fair. My mom expects me to stay home. It's like, well, do you want to have a place to live and do you want to have money because your mom needs to keep her job right now and she's probably pretty desperate because she
Right.
can't take your brother and sister off to daycare. And so it was like kind of
Right.
without, you know, without criticizing, sort of explaining why everybody needed to stick together and work on it. There was quite a few adults that lost their industries, and that broke my heart because if you think you know your industry and it's gone or you're not going to get to
Right.
do it for a while, it's kind of bewildering. Like, well, what do I do for a living, and how do I do it
Right.
from my house?
Right.
And then there were the people that got sick and got stuck in bed. And well, what's life worth if I'm this mysteriously sick, can't get over this thing, and I'm stuck in bed? And so that was my turning point, was that one, because I realized that when you know what your behavior needs to be in order to play out your lessons in life, which is based on your birthday,
Mm.
you can do it from bed if you have to. So
That's huge.
that was my kind of like, okay, I'm gonna just, you
Say
know,
it.
it's not good. It's going to sound stupid, but I'm just going to keep talking to people about it.
Were they
So,
receptive?
well, you don't always know on Quora, but yes, a lot of people would say, "Thank you, you've given me hope," or something, you know,
What
which
is Quora for
nice.
people who don't know?
Quora, so it's Quora.com, and it's a place to ask questions. Anyone in the world can ask a question just about anything. And
Oh.
if you're participating on Quora, you're usually in a certain subject or kind of a group. I mean, there's illicit things, there's super practical things, there's
Hmm.
career things, there's quite a bit, but it's conversations and people ask questions. It's also controversial because there's a certain amount of people that bait the questions and are trolls. And so there's that. But,
Mm,
you know, I don't have a whole lot of trouble with that.
right, right. So you had always had a sense there was some sort of pathway
Map,
or
map.
map, a
Yeah,
map. There
yeah,
you had this inner knowing
I did.
and it wasn't able to really come into form until till the right time, I guess. So tell me
Right.
about that process and how
Yes.
you developed it.
So I'm one of these kids that I left home at seven, just before I was 18. And when I was growing up, you had to be 21 to be an adult. So you could not have permission to leave home until you were 21 when I was a kid. But I got a job, a good job out of high school, and my mother gave me permission to leave, and I left. And then she tried to pull me back, and it's too late. I was already out. But
You got a taste of
that,
freedom and you weren't having it. You weren't
well, I
going
was
back.
working. I had a better job than she did, you know, and it's
Yeah,
so, you know, it was, but the problem was she wanted a babysitter, and I was the oldest, and she wanted me back to take
right.
care of my brother and sister.
Okay.
And so anyway, that all, you know, that's a long time ago. But um, after doing that from 17, 18 to about 27, 28, 10 years, I was like, there's got to be a map. And I am one of those people that has a big destiny. And I was restless and I was like, there's got to be more to this. And I had gone to a workshop and I forget what it was called, but I stood up and I said, is there a map? And they just went, Jimmy, there's no map. And I started crying. I was just like devastated for years. I was just like, there's no map. There's no clue. You just always throw the spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks. Really? So that was a struggle that I had as a young adult. And then when I was 34, I ran into a lady who did numerology. And honestly, I was raised Catholic. I I did know about astrology because it's in the newspaper. I did not know anything about numerology. And this woman, someone had recommended it, and I knew to follow up on it because I went to a tennis camp and there was a numerology workshop. I went to go see a lady about a bouncing class, and she had just seen a numerologist. I mean, it was just coming at me.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, I can take a hint. I won't see this as against my religion. I'll go figure out what it is. And then this woman helped me, and she was beating on the table, yelling at me. She says, "You don't know who you are. Wake up." And I'm like, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" And so that was the beginning of my journey. So I was 34, and then I've just practiced and practiced. I've wrestled with some of the numerology things, the questions like when you change your name, and people would say, "Oh, well, if they change your name, just ask them which number they like better." And I thought, boy, that just doesn't sound very scientific to me. And numerology, if you don't know, is based on Pythagoras. Pythagoras was a real person who was a considered a human Greek god, and he lived 500 years before Christ, and he had math figured out. He could explain everything through math. And so this is all kind of modernized based on the simplest of his definitions. And I was using it for myself. I was helping friends and family. And when the pandemic came, I just thought, I know what I would do to try to raise these people up, to give them hope. And so I just started to do it.
I'm so glad you
And
answered the call, Timmy, because so many people would talk themselves out of it or go, "Oh my gosh, I don't want people to think I'm
well,
crazy.
there
I'm
was
just gonna
that because I
not."
am a corporate person. I mean,
I
do I really
know.
want to take the chance of undermining my reputation? But and
Mhm.
it isn't working out. I mean,
I
it's not
feel
really that
like,
way.
when we're meant to do something and there's a very strong soul calling for it, we must answer the call. It's not even a question. It's it's
No,
it's
it's
why you're
how. It's just
here.
how and when. It's not what.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's because you
Well,
agreed to come here to play this
I did.
role, you know?
Yes, I did.
And
And by my name. So when you take a person's name, you can tell their destiny. And that's what this lady was yelling at me about. I was a double number through my name, through my birth name. And she was yelling at me, you volunteered to come here.
yes.
You need to be more aware and start working on this because your time's going to come and you're not going to be ready.
Oof,
And that's what that was
wow.
about. Yeah. And you just said something else. Oh, okay. So I was getting hints that it might be safe to come out. I was at a huge contract with a company, a scientific company that is 100 years old. And I'm sitting next to the guy who has hired me. And
Hmm.
he starts talking about numerology at lunch. My wife and I are into numerology. And I said not a word. I mean, I had never gone there. He brought it up. And that was happening more and more. And the woman that I was on the contract with had done something similar, also unrelated to this guy. And we had submitted the contract on the 13th of the month. And after we got everything in and it's all done and very formal and very businesslike, she emails me and goes, "I'm so glad we did it on the 13th. 13 in numerology is," I'm like, oh. So I think, what I would want our listeners to think about is, are you getting hints that it's okay? Are things happening that are telling you, it might be time now? You
Hmm.
you won't get stoned. You aren't going to be burned at the stake.
Yes, it's safe. It's safe to come
Yeah.
out and play the role you're meant to play. And I think there's a lot of kind of soul wounds there that people have to overcome because it hasn't been safe for so long for so many. And you did die. You were burned at the stake. You were buried
Right,
alive. You were
right.
persecuted for
For being too much. Right.
speaking your truth. And I have even had that in my personal life because I've been very aligned with my purpose and my message, and I don't really water it down. And my family members had a very, very difficult time with it. And
Yeah.
some still, are really uncomfortable with it. And that's not, I'm not going to allow three or four people who don't agree with my soul mission here to keep me from doing it. I will
It's
continue to do it,
the
regardless.
metaphor crabs in a bucket, right? The
Oh,
crabs in a bucket.
yes. Oh,
Yeah. So
yes.
if a crab tries to crawl up and get out, they'll all grab him and pull him back in. And
Hmm.
that's the crabs in the bucket thing that happens with family and friends and
Absolutely.
societies and yeah,
Absolutely. But I think we all are at a nexus point and a
mhm,
choosing point
yeah,
where we have to really dig deep in our soul and know that we volunteered to come here right now to do whatever it is you're being called to do. And
right.
and our roles are many. They're so varied, but they're all so important. It
Yeah.
could be just living your highest and best life and holding frequency for the planet. It could be baking, it could be gardening, it could whatever it is where
Anything that
you're
moves people forward and gives them
right.
hope. Hmm.
Yes.
I
And
agree.
it
Totally
doesn't
agree.
have to look a certain way. I think a lot of people get really tied to I have to have this huge life purpose and I need to be Oprah and I need to be an influencer. And it has nothing to do with that. It's no, you really need to be the fullest expression of you, like that divine expression of you here in human form and being very forward. And
Yeah.
you can influence so many people just by living authentically and finding joy and creativity in your life and being who you're meant to be here. So let's move a little forward to how this soul work map evolved and how did you bring all these pieces together and what did it feel like when you're like, this is it, the map I've been looking for?
Yeah, and I created it. How about that?
I
Instead of it
know.
was came from some other source.
Right.
Well, it wasn't called a soul work map at first. It was just the ability to or the realization that I could take these basic numerology data, pieces of data, and combine them with my two favorite business assessments. And my favorites are the Gallup Strength Finders, which a lot of your listeners may have done through their church or through their work. And then there's a new one that came out in 2013 called the Fascination Test, and it's fascination, howtofascinate.com. And just these two kind of explain you very quickly. And then if you know basically what you're supposed to be working on, which is your birthday numbers, and then where you might be headed in terms of your bigger destiny, it creates a gap and you can just work your plan knowing what your brand is and what your skill sets are. And so that was the beginning of it. And then I kept, when I realized it came together, it was just an accident. I was working on a 5 year government contract. And towards the end of the third year, I started getting some of the same people back. They had been promoted and I was getting them back. And what they were saying was, you blew my socks off the first time, do it again. And I didn't have a do it again. I was using Gallup and I didn't have a do it again. And this one guy had said to me, I wish I knew how my employees look at me. And I thought, oh, well, I could use the fascination test because it tells you what your brand is. And it was very, very interesting because he was kind of a preppy. I never saw him, but you could tell he was kind of preppy, and he worked fairly high up in the government in a distribution job, and he was African American, and there was some racism going on, and there was a
Mm.
history of racism in his life, and we were talking about it very openly. And then he had said, "I just wish how I knew how they look at me." And I said, "Why?" And he says, "Because when I go off work, they follow me out, and they're talking to me." and I just want to go to my car and I should be allowed to leave. I've put in my, 9, 10 hours. And I was like, okay. So I said, well, you could take this assessment and I'll go through it with you if you want. So when I talked to him the next time, I said, did you do it? And he's like, Timmy, I've talked about nothing more for 2 weeks with my wife. I mean, do you know who I am? Because they give you an archetype.
Oh,
And I said,
okay.
no, who are you? And he goes, I am James Bond. I am James Bond. And then when
I
you think about
love
the
it.
tie and the whole thing, and I said, you're James Bond? He goes, yeah. He says, no wonder they don't let me leave the building. Because, if you watch the movies, it's like, James, one more thing. James, we need you to do this. We need you to do that. And he goes, now I'm rethinking of all these situations where I took it personally and
Mm,
negatively and realizing, well, if I was James Bond, and that's kind of how people experience me as having the answers and being capable and being above average and all that. He says, then maybe, maybe it's not that bad. So that had started me thinking, and I started using
right,
that assessment
right,
and pulling it together. And then pretty soon I saw how the three of them worked together. And then later it's like, well, I've always wanted a map. And then it was like, well, if I want a map, what does it look like? And it
right.
just kept evolving, right? So it's literally a map that shows the two roads that you go through. It goes past Fascination Island. It goes up through the Gallup Strength Finders. There's mountains that are breaking out the four categories of strengths, and then it leads you to a lighthouse, which is your name, and you have a legend, and you can find all your points on the map. And it's whimsical. It's a little bit like the game of life or Shoots and Ladders, kind of a feel
Yeah,
to it.
cool. That is
Yeah,
so cool.
yeah.
And do you take new clients or is it mostly corporate clients?
Oh,
Can
yeah.
people
No, in
find
fact,
you online or like what is
yeah.
the best
Well,
way if
it's
people want to
mhm.
connect with you?
It's unusual to combine three things. So it's a little bit of a new idea to do something like that. So I did them for a year, 2 years for free. I'm now at the point where they're $99, but you do the assessments and I'll give you the map. And you go to soulworkmaps.com,
I'll put
and
that in the
you can find
notes
me there.
in the
Mhm.
video
Yeah, you
version
can see
of
the
our
map. You can see me in front of the map. You can see, you can get a hold of me, contact me, and say you want to do it. I'd be happy to do that. And I kind of hope that people have maybe taken some of these assessments, and then all I have to do is do the numerology for you and help
right.
you pull it together, give you a
How
map.
does it
I'd love
feel
to
to
do that.
be kind of stepping more forward into your purpose here
Well,
in this way?
it feels like I'm closing the gap between working my birthday numbers and to where I'm headed. I feel my name implies that I'm a volunteer, that I'm the CEO of something, and that it's a humanitarian project. So, to create a map that could be used globally, that I created is, and it's humanitarian. It's a service. It feels like I'm on the right
It
track.
feels right.
Hmm.
It
Yeah,
aligns. It
yeah,
aligns with
yeah, and
your
it's very
knowing.
satisfying. Yeah, it's
Right.
feels real good.
So, what have you found? What do you think it is that offers people empowerment by going through this process with you and finding their
Mm.
kind of
You
soul
know,
work map?
the biggest thing that sort of surprised me is the validation that comes out of it. A lot of
Mm.
people go, "Oh, I'm on the right track then," or, "Oh, I do that, so I just need to do it more." It's that kind of where
Oh,
things come together. Instead of telling them something they
oh.
never thought of, it resonates for them, and that
Right.
is extremely rewarding.
Do you find that they're already kind of doing it, but they don't really realize it when you
Right. Or
go through it, or what?
they hope they're right, but they didn't know. But now I just told them, hey, you are like totally in sync with what you're supposed to be doing. Just keep doing it. And they're like, that's cool.
Do
That
you think you're
it
almost,
validates.
do you think you're like giving them almost permission, like by sharing this information
Yeah.
to continue on? Because I think a lot of people, I know people have self-doubt, even if
Well,
they're
it's yeah, I
very
mean, there's so many
aligned or. you
so many
know.
other things going on with our society that would discourage you from being different or, taking
Yeah,
risks. And if
yeah.
someone says, you know what, here's where you are, here's where it looks like you need to be, here's what people see, here's how you're doing it, and then they go, I'm doing all that, and it validates them. I've had probably a half a dozen people say, I was going to quit doing what I do
Oh
because I
my
didn't get it.
gosh, really?
I didn't get it, and now I get it, and I'm not going to quit. Now I
Oh,
know my purpose.
that's where
So,
it really feels impactful to me that you're able to get them right at that jumping off point where they're just about to give it up or be like, this isn't worth it, or
and then they go, oh, I didn't ever see it like that. Oh, that makes
mm,
total sense to me. Yeah.
hmm.
And the thing is, I think we kind of assume that if we become rich or more beautiful or ascend or become spiritually awakened, that life's going to be easier. And that is not the way it works.
That's a
It
myth.
isn't easier. It isn't easier. It's the only thing that's easy about it is you're on the right track. But there's still
Right.
all the challenges and all of the setbacks. I mean, if you look at some of the people that are really famous right now and or on, some of the criticisms that they um, take on, I watched the Chosen series and get the guy that Dallas Jenkins just says, everybody's like, oh God, and your series is so incredible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And he goes, for all that, I get as many all day that I'm the devil, that I'm, a blasphemer. And he says, it's like both. And you have to just
Well,
keep going and
you
not
have to
worry about
stay in your
either of it.
lane no matter what.
Stay in your
That's
lane.
that's what I know. You have to
Hmm.
stay in your lane. And also there is um there's a large segment of society that is not open to change. They're not
Right.
open to
No, they're protecting tradition, which I understand.
exactly.
It
But we
needs to
do
be
have to, as
history.
a society,
Hmm.
move forward and
Right. But
evolve and
mhm,
open our minds, open our hearts, and embrace and create the new. We're not here
yes,
to repeat the 1800s. We're not here
no.
to repeat
So
our
I think the
last 100 years.
distinction, if you think about the way you're describing it is a flow and it's gentle.
Hmm.
And what a lot of people are stuck in is black and white. Yes,
Hmm.
right, wrong. They're stuck in this black and white, right, wrong. And life is pretty much a gray area. And
Hmm.
so you can have these traditions and have a sense of history and learn from your roots. And then you still can move forward without rejecting anything.
I feel like the children coming in are so open, and they're going to, every generation is just going to change the world. They are
Yeah.
prepared for many, many,
Right. They don't
birth
even know what
years
they're prepared for. There's a lot
before they
coming
come
in the,
in
yeah.
to
Mhm.
really challenge the status quo and create change. And I really feel that regardless of how many people dig their heels in
Yeah.
and say, we're not going to do it,
Right.
change is here and change is coming. The frequencies on the
Right.
planet
You
demand
can't go
it.
back. Yeah, you
You
can't go back.
cannot go back. And so,
Mhm.
that may be why a lot of people are transitioning now too. They've kind of
Yeah.
they're not choosing to go forward
And they're not
in
here to
this.
take anybody forward either. So it's okay if they leave.
Exactly. It's a choice. It's a soul choice.
Yeah.
And I feel like we are going to see more of that.
Hmm.
And vibrationally, I'm all about energy. Vibrationally, we have to be in resonance with the frequencies on the
Yes.
planet. You
Yes.
cannot be down here and the frequency is here. There has to be a resonance, or you have to at least be in the bandwidth. You can't be so far down that you can't even bridge the gap. And so I really do
There's a lot of
feel
resonance going on, and there's even the sun eclipse that's going to be coming up here in the first week of April, and
mm,
how it's going to impact certain parts of the country more than other parts.
this is true. I've heard that it's going to
Hmm.
be full, eclipse in some parts and then
Mhm.
partial in others.
And
So
not happen until 2075 or 4 or something like
right,
that
right.
again. So
It's April
mhm.
8th, right? What's the date of it?
It's a Monday and it could be the 8th. That sounds about right.
I'm gonna look. I'm
Yeah.
gonna look because I'm very curious. I did have
But I
my
think if you're in the
eclipse
part of the country
classes.
where it's going to be really visible, then it's
April
worth
8th.
okay.
Yeah. Where is
Yeah.
it gonna be? Do you
It's
know?
going to start like Texas and then go diagonally up towards the northeast.
Okay. Well,
So
I'm in
so for
Texas.
us I'm in California, it's going to be like only 50 or 60%
Hmm.
visible at our angle. But for anybody that's in the Midwest and then up through probably I, my brother has a wonderful picture. If you're going to post stuff afterwards, I could send it to you. He's the representative of Walmart in Oklahoma, and he is selling T-shirts and glasses, and they're getting ready for it, and they're
They're
expecting a
prepared.
huge influx of people in those
Oh, just to
regions
come drive in
just to watch
and
it.
view it.
Mhm.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, send me the picture. I'll drop it in.
I'm
That'll be
so
so fun.
okay.
Gosh, so, Timmy, I first of all really want to honor your work and your bravery and stepping into your
Thank you. You
power and
too.
purpose
Thank
because
you.
we will always have naysayers and we will always have people who are going to challenge um, our work. And what I've found is I've just gotten this message so many times, stay in your lane. Just
Yeah.
stay in your lane. And I
Right.
do. It's so
Mhm.
easy to get pulled off if you
Right.
are trying to belong, or if you're trying to be validated, or if
Yes.
you're insecure about what you're offering. I've seen so many gifted and talented um, people, who have incredible knowing, incredible healing abilities, incredible gifts, just get derailed
Yes.
by family, by
Yes.
friends, by spouses, by whoever. I think we have to now more than ever believe in ourselves.
Yes, and maybe seek help and guidance and how you might approach it more effectively. Because there's what I see, whether it's corporate or not, is a lot of people not knowing how to be effective. They don't have a sense of like if you're not good at presenting things, get a buddy who is, tell them your
Hmm.
idea, and then go
Hmm.
do it together. But
Right.
don't expect that you have to be everything. So kind of learning about yourself, which is why I like the assessments and also how people see you. Do people really see you as the one that would present the idea? And if
Hmm.
so, great. But if not, then
And that's the direction we're moving, right? More collaboration, more
mhm,
unity, more
right.
community,
Mhm,
more like mutual support. Like the
yes,
old paradigm was very much dog eat dog. It was very much, I have to get to the top. I have to do this on my own. And I think there's a big kind of weight of that belief system still kind of anchoring and holding people back. But I'm such a believer in collaboration and community and uplifting everyone around me. Like I will promote anyone on my social media or my newsletter or I want all of us to rise. I don't want anyone to feel like they are unseen or unsupported, because this is what the future is about.
yes,
It's
it
really
is.
about working through your emotional wounds and your insecurities and vulnerabilities and your blind spots
Right.
to get you to a place to see that this is not a competition. We can all be doing the exact same thing, but because of our unique frequencies and our unique niche or purpose, no one can be you.
That's right.
No one can
No
do
one
what
can.
you're doing the way
No.
you're doing it. And
Right.
so it doesn't make sense to feel insecure or vulnerable or not enough because only you can do what you're doing. Only Timmy can do what she's doing. She created this soul work map, and someone
Right.
else might create something similar, but it will definitely not be the same.
And it doesn't matter because we need all of it. We need
We
all of
need
it.
all of it. That's
Yeah.
right.
And we are all different, and some things will resonate for certain people, and other things will be more appealing. So, yeah, I agree with you on this. It does take a lot of courage, though, especially if you have wounds.
It does. It does.
But that's another
But
reason to stick together to help to support
right,
each other.
right. There's so much help out there. There's so many free resources out there.
Yeah.
There's
Mhm.
blogs, there's free courses, and one thing I do really stress with my clients is energetic alignment. Check in. Don't
Mhm.
just take a million classes and wander around. Like you said, don't throw spaghetti on the wall. Just really dial in and really pay attention to how you
Have some
feel.
intention, right?
Yes,
Attention and intention.
yes. Don't just run
Yeah.
around and go on every retreat. And, you've got to
It's
have some,
exhausting. Yeah.
yes,
Expensive too.
it is expensive. It's really important to just really spend some time and really dial into what's in true resonance with you, because that's what's going to serve you the most. And I think a lot of people get distracted by the
Yeah.
healing retreats and the yoga stuff and the whatever it is. And it's really important that we start to really energetically dial in and lean into what's calling to us
Mhm.
truly.
And I think too, to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, you may be the person who's in the front of the line doing that, leading that, or you may be one of the secondary people that supports that person in the
Mm-hmm.
front, or you may be part of the crowd that keeps everybody comfortable as they move forward. That's where you kind of need to find out where your spot is and
Right,
where you're comfortable. You don't have to be
right,
a guru per se. You just
right.
have to be, a person who knows how you're going to help.
And I've also found that you don't have to have the entire plan. You can take that next step. It doesn't have to be. So many people, I feel, delay their launch or their thing, whatever it is, because they want everything laid out for the next 10 years, and they want to be sure it's going to work, and they need all this definitive data, and they need all of
They want
it.
guarantees, and there aren't any.
There's just so much in flux right now, and pivot points and plot twists, that you really, if you can just take a step, even if it's just sitting down and writing the vision, that's whenever you're pouring energy into forward movement, that's going to start to open the gateway. That's going to start to move the river, right? And carry you in the current.
You just nail
Um,
down what you know, what you're sure
right,
of. And you don't
right,
have to understand what's between the points. You just have to have what
exactly.
you do know. Yeah,
Right. And it'll fill in as you go. It'll just fill
that's
in. It's
right.
a process. It's
Hmm.
not, and you have to be adaptable and fluid too, because like I said, I've had so many plot twists. I'm like, oh, I didn't see that happening,
Yeah.
but we're all
Hmm.
changing, and our work changes with us. Our frequencies are changing as we expand in consciousness. What we're able to offer changes. What information we download and get about things
And what our
changes.
audience is able to hear changes too.
Right. And I do find that wherever you are in your journey, you're here to serve people in a specific bandwidth, and your people will find you because it's in resonance. And I really believe that. We don't have to hustle it. You can just take the next step and take the next step, and it'll organically grow. And a lot of it is really just trusting the process, I feel.
And trusting yourself and learning yourself. You have to learn yourself. You have to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You have to
Absolutely.
know what you can do to help. Mhm.
You said there's
I
a
agree.
kind of a power in knowing or understanding your unique life path.
Mhm.
Can you speak to me about what you've noticed in your clients who just come in without really understanding, and then to having more of an understanding of their life path and how that's impacted their lives and their choices?
Yeah, so I've had a couple people that after they were the executive clients kind of hung around and said, okay, now do
Mhm.
this other stuff too.
Yeah.
and how it emboldens them. They're like, okay, I get it now. Why I've gone through these various experiences,
Mm,
why I
mm,
had jobs that I didn't like, but were actually perfect for building my skill sets in certain areas.
mm.
Um, they can start to see where they're hesitating, playing small when really they're being called to play larger.
Big one.
Um, yeah, it's huge. It's
Yeah.
huge. And I think that the fascination assessment is worth every penny you pay. I think it's at $79 now. And you get a report. You don't really need to be debriefed. If you are debriefed, you're going to probably get more out of it. But
Hmm.
it's just so revealing in terms of how people are seeing you. It was huge for me. It came out in 2013. And I have lived a life coming from very humble, two alcoholic parents, paid for my bachelor of science, could never go on to afford to pay for a master's or PhD, and yet work with those people now. So it didn't really matter, I guess.
Right.
But, it was sort of like when I had been very bold, when I was graduating from college, there were no jobs and it was on the news, just television in those days, day and night everybody's working at coffee shops and they have masters and PhDs. And I had a bachelor of science. I was like, what am I going to do? But I saw an unmet need and I put together a plan based on some people I had met. And I put together a plan and I wrote to the state of California and I said, this is who I am. This is how I know who you are. This is what I see. And this is what I think you should do. And I think you should hire me to do it. And I'll be damned if they didn't hire me. It didn't go real fast, but
Right.
they hired me out of college to do this thing that I had created. And that is just one example. And then, okay, so then I go do it. And before I go to the campus, I propose that we take the state employment office onto the college campus during this time of no jobs and help people get jobs. Because I was seeing that students were asking for full-time jobs. They said, okay, to all this. I go down there, I learn it. And while I'm there, the fall of Vietnam comes, which was in the 70s, the
Oh
middle
my
70s.
gosh.
And they said, well, you are going to be going to campus soon and doing this thing that you created. And there's Cambodian, Vietnamese, and Laotian students out there that are never going to get to go home. You need to go out there and register them now before the other refugees start coming over. So I go out there, I learn all these names. Well, then the refugees are now coming and who knows the names? I do. And school has delayed our plan. It was delayed 4 years.
Oh,
And I know all these names and I'm comfortable working with all these foreign words and things. And so I become at age 25, the state of California, county of San Diego, Southeast East Asian representative for all these refugees
wow.
for
That's
years.
incredible.
I
That's
mean,
amazing.
so that's just an example. And my life has been a kind of like that, where I have the guts to see something or say something, and I get it. And I saw at this point in my life, I was in 2013, I was like, boy, if somebody could tell me, just like that man, what
Yeah.
people see and why they say
Mhm.
yes to me, because I couldn't really figure it out. And
Right.
it just cleared it up right away. There's
Right.
seven reasons that people want to be with you, seven triggers that cause people to want to be with you. And it's things like passion, power, prestige, mystique, innovation. And it just gave me my archetype. And I went, okay, got to quit playing small. I was
I
just,
love that. And I'm so glad you did. I'm glad you
mhm.
did quit
It
playing
clarified for
small.
me. I refined,
Yeah.
I
Right.
tweaked in
Right. It's a
2013.
process, right? It's a
Mhm.
process. And
Yep.
we don't always know what's coming, but we know what we're capable of.
Mhm.
And
What
so,
we're willing to do. That's the other thing
right.
is, what are you willing to do?
Well, I've always, what's been coming up a lot is everything is a choice.
Mhm.
We all have a choice.
We do, even when we think we don't.
Even
Mhm.
not choosing is a choice,
That's right.
right? And
Right.
so I
We
continue
had
to
that.
try to be,
I was at branding class once at a job, and somebody said, "Well, I don't have a brand. I function under the radar." And the teacher said, "That's your brand, the guy who functions under the radar." Everybody has a brand.
yeah, right. We all
Mhm.
do. We all
Mhm.
do. Timmy,
Yeah,
this has been such a pleasure having you on the
thanks.
show. And I'd love
Good to
to,
talk about it, I think. It's great
oh,
to,
yeah, it's a great
you know.
topic. I'd
Hmm.
love for you to share maybe, you've worked with so many people for so many years. What do you think is the one thing that people can do that feel a little bit lost and a little bit unsure going forward and stepping into their new direction? It's can be very terrifying. What kind
Yeah.
of wisdom can you offer to them if they're in
Well,
that circumstance?
pretty much this applies to anybody that's confused or can't make a decision. It's because they don't have enough data. So let's say you don't have any money to your name and you need more data. Walk around where you live and pretend you're trying to understand who lives here. And, kind of write down what you see. Is this person messy? Is this person clean? Does this person have a lot of food around? What colors are they colorful? Are they bland? Start collecting data on yourself. And then if you can do assessments, I think that having a couple of really good assessments can give you that vocabulary you need to talk about who you are and what you can create for others. And I think having new skill sets right now, having new systems is really important. It's not that we want to get rid of the old ones, they just don't work anymore. So we need new
Well, I
ideas, new
feel
systems.
there are a lot of innovators out there, and that's their role.
That's
If
right.
if there isn't something that's working, then maybe you're meant to create it.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. You and a friend, if not you only, right?
Yeah,
Don't be afraid of
collaboration
that.
is
Just,
great,
yeah. Hmm.
but also I feel like every single soul has an innate knowing. So
Hmm.
also listen to the whispers.
The whispers, and I would add to what you're saying that when you were a child, you
A
knew.
100%.
Yeah.
Go
So
back to your
listen,
4-year-old self and you
yeah,
will know who you are.
and so take a look at that and think, oh no, I didn't do that, but you did do it. You are doing it. You
Right.
know what? I got in trouble in kindergarten. I went to Catholic school and they taught us about the saints and they taught us about the angels and they taught us about jobs that mothers and dads and firemen and
Mhm.
policemen have. And one day we were sitting around a table and there was maybe 8 or 10 of us and they went, girl boys and went around and said, what do you want to be? And there was teachers, firemen, dads and all this stuff. I wanted to be an archangel. And that was not a popular thing to
That was not
say,
acceptable, Timmy. That was too
not
bold,
acceptable.
too
It
brave.
was too bold and it was blasphemous. They actually said that. And I was
Oh
six
my
years old,
gosh.
that I was blaspheming.
And you were probably like, well, I actually am an archangel on the other side,
That's
and you
exactly what
don't know
happened.
it.
I
So
sat
don't
there and
tell
went,
me.
fine. Yeah, I won't bring it up again. And you guys don't know anything. But anyway, you forget about that stuff. And so, probably about 10 years ago, I was in a workshop on a Saturday, and they said, go back to what you wanted to be when you were little. I went, oh, Archangel. And they said, and didn't you do it? And I went, hmm, 25 years old, representative for all the Southeast Asian refugees for the state of California and the county of San Diego? Maybe. Went into a newspaper where they were fighting and having union movements and things were falling apart and got everybody calmed down. Maybe so. And I started thinking in my whole life, I had been like a corporate archangel.
Fulfilling that role
Mhm.
in a
And the
powerful way.
idea, and no one asked, someone should have asked me at the time, what is it about an archangel that's attractive to you? And it was the story of Angel Gabriel appearing to Mary and saying, behold, you're going to be the mother of God, and don't worry about it. We're going to take care of it. You'll be all right. Kind of that reassurance,
Right,
that
right, right.
we have it all worked out, and you're going to have this man that's going to oversee you, and it's going to be fine, and no one's going to know, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I
Powerful.
really loved that idea.
I
Shut
love
up.
that we're ending on that note. I love that we're having that archangel conversation right
There you
as
go.
we close the show. Well, Timmy, it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you so
Thanks
much for
again.
being here.
It was my
And
pleasure. And all the best to all your listeners.
thank you.
Go forward. Go boldly,
Go
as
forth,
Captain Picard
go
would say.
forth into your purpose. To my listeners, thank you so much for being here. Take care of yourselves, love yourselves, believe in yourselves, and I'll see you next time. I love y'all. Bye.